January 1st, 2099. High above the ecliptic plane, where the warmth of the sun is reduced to nothing more than a particularly bright and pitiless needle of light, a solitary ghost drifts through the eternal dark. This is the Three-Eye Atlas, a mechanical envoy forged in the fires of human ambition, now a silent sentinel navigating the shoreless sea of the outer solar system. It is 600 million kilometres from the world that gave it birth, a distance so vast that the concept of a home or a hearth has dissolved into the mathematics of the void. There is no wind here to buffet its metallic skin, no sound to herald its arrival, and no witness to acknowledge its existence save for the cold indifference of the distant stars. The probe is a masterpiece of precision and isolation, a silver needle threading the tapestry of the abyss. For years it has fallen through the emptiness, its internal systems whispering in the language of binary code, a quiet pulse in the middle of a scream that no one can hear. It carries within its silicon memory the collective curiosity of a species that has only just begun to understand its own insignificance. To the universe, the Three-Eye Atlas is less than a grain of sand cast into a storm. To the minds that launched it, it is the sole witness to the unfolding of a primordial mystery. It is the lonely messenger, the vanguard of a cosmic letter written by a civilization that may not even survive to hear the reply. Around the probe, the vacuum is absolute. This is the great oblivion, the silent theatre where the laws of physics play out their inexorable dramas without an audience. The distance between the Three-Eye Atlas and the blue marble of Earth is an unbridgeable sea of shadow, a gap so wide that light itself takes more than half an hour to cross the divide. In this space, time feels different. It is not measured by the ticking of clocks or the rising of a sun, but by the slow decay of isotopes and the gradual cooling of the machine's heart. The probe exists in a state of perpetual epoch, a bridge between the era of terrestrial confinement and the dawning age of the deep cosmos. As the calendar of the old world turns to the first day of the final year of the century, the Three-Eye Atlas begins its approach to the Jovian system. Before it lies the king of planets, a gas giant of such terrifying proportions that it distorts the very fabric of reality around it. Jupiter looms in the darkness like a slumbering god, a chaotic masterpiece of swirling ammonia clouds and cyclonic storms that have raged for centuries. The probe is moving toward this colossus with a velocity that would shatter any terrestrial vessel, yet in the scale of the cosmos it appears to be crawling, a minute insect approaching a mountain of marble and gold. The isolation is total. There are no signals from the inner worlds that reach here with any warmth. The commands from mission control are mere ghosts by the time they arrive, echoes of a past that the probe has long since outlived. The Three-Eye Atlas is now an autonomous entity, a child of logic making its own way through the house of the stars. It scans the horizon with eyes that see in spectrums invisible to human biology, witnessing the infrared glow of the Jovian interior and the ultraviolet shimmer of the aurorae that crown the planet's poles. It is seeing the universe as it truly is, a vast, radiant, and utterly heartless mechanism. The Jovian system is a microcosm of the greater cosmos, a collection of moons and rings that dance in a delicate gravitational symphony. Each of these worlds is a remnant of the primordial chaos that birthed the sun, frozen galleries of ice and fire that have remained untouched for eons. The probe eyes these moons with a dispassionate gaze. There is Europa, a sphere of cracked ice hiding a dark and saline abyss, Ganymede, the giant, and Io, the tormented victim of tidal forces, erupting in a constant paroxysm of sulphurous rage. To the Three-Eye Atlas, these are not just destinations, but chapters in a story of cosmic catastrophe and creation that began billions of years before the first human looked at the night sky and wondered. The silence of the void is deceptive. While there is no air to carry the vibrations of sound, the space around Jupiter is screaming with electromagnetic fury. The planet's magnetic field is a monstrous invisible structure, a trap for high-energy particles that spiral and crash in a relentless bombardment. This is the threshold of the unknown, a wall of radiation that would wither the DNA of any living thing in a matter of seconds. The 3i Atlas prepares itself for the transition. Its shielding, a thin layer of specialized alloys, is all that stands between its delicate electronics and the wrath of the gas giant. It is a sentinel of metal entering a realm where matter itself is torn apart by the intensity of the Jovian grip. We often imagine the exploration of the stars as a grand adventure, filled with the drama of discovery and the triumph of the spirit. But here, at the edge of the radiation belts, the reality is far more somber. It is a slow, methodical march into the jaws of a machine. The probe does not feel fear, nor does it feel pride. It simply records. It observes the way the light of the sun is swallowed by the shadow of the planet, creating a darkness so profound that it seems to have a weight of its own. It measures the flux of the magnetosphere, the density of the dust rings, and the chemical composition of the upper atmosphere. It is the perfect observer because it lacks the burden of emotion. It is a mirror reflecting the cold majesty of the abyss. As the 3i Atlas begins its final descent into the Jovian influence, the distance from Earth feels more like a measure of time than a measure of space. It has travelled across the history of human technology to arrive at this point, carrying the hopes of 1 billion souls into a place where those souls could never survive. The probe is a testament to the fact that we can reach out into the infinite, even if we can never truly inhabit it. It is our proxy, our representative in the court of the eternal. It stands at the gates of the Jovian system, a lone witness to the frozen world ahead, ready to unravel the secrets of the primordial soup that still swirls within the giant's clouds. The mission is a monumental undertaking conducted in absolute silence. There are no cheers in the vacuum, no applause as the probe crosses the invisible boundary of the radiation belts. There is only the inexorable pull of gravity and the steady ticking of the onboard computer. The Sentinel has arrived at the threshold. It is no longer just a machine. It is a memory of Earth, a fragment of the light cast into the dark to see what lies on the other side. As it plunges into the shimmering curtains of the Jovian aurora, the 3i Atlas begins its transformation from a traveller into a martyr for knowledge, a solitary spark disappearing into the maw of a beautiful and ruthless cosmos. The descent has begun, and the void waits with open arms to devour the secrets it has come to tell. In the winter of 1610, the silence of the night in Padua was broken not by a sound, but by a realization that would eventually unmake the world. A solitary man, Galileo Galilei, stood beneath a canopy of stars with a primitive arrangement of glass and wood. To the naked eye, the cosmos was a fixed tapestry, a divine and unchanging sphere centered eternally upon the human experience. But through the narrow field of his telescope, the universe began to unravel. He turned his gaze toward the dominant jewel of the night sky, the planet Jupiter, and saw what no eyes had ever seen. There, flanking the gas giant, were 4 tiny points of light, arranged in a straight line that defied the established order of the heavens. These were not fixed stars, but wandering sentinels dancing a rhythmic and inexorable waltz around a body that was not the Earth. In that moment, the geocentric delusion, which had anchored the human ego for 2,000 years, began to crumble into the abyss. Galileo called these moons the Medicean stars, a name intended to court the favour of earthly princes, yet their true significance transcended any crown or creed. They were the first proof that we were not the centre of the celestial mechanism. This was the birth of observation, a pivot in the history of our species where the authority of ancient texts was replaced by the cold, silent testimony of the lens. The Jovian dance revealed a universe of motion, a vast and indifferent clockwork where worlds revolved around worlds in a symphony of gravity. For 4 centuries this discovery remained a distant wonder, a collection of flickering dots captured in the journals of astronomers who could only dream of the distances involved. The human mind, tethered to the ground, had to wait for its technology to catch up to its curiosity. The maturation of this curiosity was a slow and agonizing process, spanning generations of thinkers who lived and died in the shadow of Galileo's revelation. We move from the era of flickering candlelight and hand-drawn maps to the age of electronic eyes and silicon brains. It took nearly 400 years for the legacy of the Medici stars to evolve from a philosophical challenge into a physical destination. In 1979, the human reach finally extended into the outer dark. The Voyager probes, twin voyagers of metal and radio waves, crossed the invisible boundary into the Jovian system, fulfilling the ancient promise of the telescope. As they approached the moon, we now call Europa, the grainy silhouettes recorded by Galileo were replaced by high-resolution nightmares of beauty and isolation. The images sent back across the void from 1979 were a catastrophe for our expectations of the outer solar system. We had expected to find dead, cratered rocks, the cold remnants of a primordial epoch frozen in time. Instead, the cameras of the lonely probe revealed a world that looked like a scarred canvas, an intricate web of fractures and lineaments that defied easy explanation. There were no massive craters to mark the passage of eons. Instead, the surface was a smooth, bright shell of ice, crisscrossed by dark, reddish veins that stretched for thousands of miles. This was the first realization that Europa was not a stagnant relic of the past, but a geologically active sphere, a body undergoing a violent and hidden transformation. The surface of Europa is a testament to the inexorable power of tidal forces. As the moon orbits the massive bulk of Jupiter, it is caught in a gravitational tug-of-war between the giant planet and its sister moons, Io and Ganymede. This constant stretching and squeezing generates an internal heat that defies the freezing embrace of the void. The ice we see is a shifting mosaic, a thin crust floating atop a hidden abyss of liquid water. The lines across the surface are not merely cracks, they are the scars of a moon that is breathing, a world where the interior heat is constantly trying to burst through the frozen sentinel of the shell. We call this the scarred canvas metaphor because every line tells the story of a tectonic event, a moment where the dark ocean beneath forced its way into the light, only to be instantly devoured by the cold and reclaimed by the ice. This revelation shifted the focus of our search for life from the warmth of the sun to the dark energy of planetary interiors. We realized that the habitable zone of a star is not the only place where the sparks of existence might ignite. In the deep, lightless pressure of the Jovian system, the same chemistry that birthed us might be churning in a silent subterranean sea. The legacy of the forgotten pioneer Galileo reached out across the centuries to touch the senses of the lonely probe, connecting the Renaissance mind with the digital age. Both were driven by the same primordial impulse, the need to look into the dark and ask what lies beyond the threshold of our sight. The transition from the 1610 observations to the 1979 flybys represents the slow, methodical march of human inquiry. We are a species that refuses to accept the limitations of our biology. We build tools that can see what our eyes cannot, and we send those tools into environments where our bodies would perish in a heartbeat. The Voyager mission was the first time we truly saw the cracked ice of Europa, not as a mathematical abstraction, but as a physical landscape of ridges and plains. It was a moment of profound melancholy, realizing that such a vast and complex world exists in total isolation, far from the warmth of any hearth, illuminated only by the distant pale light of a sun that looks like little more than a bright star. Now, as the 3i Atlas approaches this same scarred canvas, it carries with it the accumulated weight of 4 centuries of wonder. It is the latest sentinel in a long line of observers, a fragment of Earth sent to interrogate the mysteries of the Jovian abyss. The probe does not see a dead rock. It sees a world of potential, a place where the chemistry of life may be hidden beneath miles of protective ice. The cracked surface is a map of a hidden empire, a realm where time is measured in the slow drift of ice sheets and the sudden, violent eruption of geysers. The legacy of observation is a continuous thread, beginning with a man in Padua and extending through the metallic voyagers of the 20th century to the sophisticated machines of our own era. We are the witnesses to this cosmic drama. Through our machines, we have transcended the boundaries of our own atmosphere to stand on the shores of an alien sea. The vast, silent plains of Europa are no longer a mystery to be feared, but a riddle to be solved. We have moved from the terror of the unknown to the clinical precision of the scientific deep dive. Yet, even as we map every ridge and measure every flux in the magnetic field, the sense of awe remains. The universe is a ruthless machine, an engine of entropy and decay, but within that machine there are pockets of incredible complexity and beauty. Europa is a jewel of ice and iron, a reminder that the cosmos is far more vibrant and terrifying than we ever dared to imagine. As the Sentinel prepares to unravel the final secrets of the Jovian dance, we are reminded that we are the eyes of the universe, the only part of this vast mechanism that can stop and wonder at its own existence. The scarred canvas waits, an eternal record of the forces that shape the dark, and we are finally ready to read the story it has been writing for billions of years. The year is 1995, and a new sentinel of human curiosity enters the domain of the King of Planets. This metallic traveller, named for the pioneer who first looked through a glass lens at the celestial spheres, carries with it an instrument of profound sensitivity. While the cameras of the Galileo mission captured the fractured, chaotic plains of the moon Europa, it was not the light that revealed the moon's greatest secret. Light is a fickle medium, easily blocked by a shell of ice miles thick, reflecting only the frozen, dead history of a world locked in a cryogenic embrace. To see what lies beneath, the species on Earth had to learn to see the invisible. They had to listen to the silent screams of the magnetic field, a force that permeates the abyss of the Jovian system like an unseen titanic ocean of energy. At the centre of this investigation stands a figure whose mind would bridge the gap between abstract mathematics and the physical reality of a hidden world. Margaret Kyvelson, a scientist of relentless precision, looked at the data streaming back across the void and saw something that defied the expected order of the cosmos. As the Galileo probe swept past Europa, its magnetometer recorded a distortion, a ripple in the magnetic tapestry of Jupiter itself. To the untrained eye, this was merely noise in a vast machine, but to Kyvelson, it was a signature. It was the evidence of a conversation between the giant planet and its frozen child. Jupiter possesses a magnetic field of terrifying proportions, a swirling vortex of energy that dwarfs anything found in our own corner of the solar system. As Europa orbits within this field, it should, by all accounts, be a passive observer, a mere rock caught in the wake of a god. Yet, the data suggested otherwise. The magnetic field of Jupiter was bending around Europa, warping in a way that could only be explained if the moon was generating a field of its own. But Europa is not a world of iron and fire like the Earth. It does not possess a molten core of churning metal to ignite a global magnetic shield. This was the scale paradox that Kyvelson and her team had to unravel. They realized that the field they were witnessing was an inductive response, a ghost in the machine. Imagine a conductive shield held beneath the ice, a layer of material so vast and so efficient at carrying an electrical current that it reacts to the inexorable pull of Jupiter's rotation. As the giant planet's magnetic field sweeps over the moon, it generates electrical currents within Europa's interior. These currents, in turn, produce a secondary magnetic field that pushes back against the Jovian Titan. To find the source of this resistance, the mathematics pointed to only one possibility: a global, subterranean ocean of salt water. This was the Kyvelson breakthrough, a moment where the cold, clinical data of a distant probe transformed our understanding of the outer solar system. It revealed that the surface we see is merely a mask, a frozen shell hiding a dark, primordial liquid. This ocean is not a mere pocket of water, but a world-spanning reservoir, containing more liquid than all the basins of Earth combined. It is a realm of eternal night, sheltered from the lethal radiation of the Jovian belts by a crust of ice that serves as both a prison and a sanctuary. The tension between the frozen exterior and the conductive liquid deep below creates a world of dynamic instability. The ice is not a static monument. It is a living skin, stretched and pulled by the gravity of Jupiter, cracking under the strain of the hidden tides that surge within the abyss. Gravity and magnetism are the true senses of the modern explorer. While our biological ancestors relied on the flicker of firelight to ward off the terrors of the caves, we use the invisible flux of the cosmos to navigate the void. We have learned that light is often a liar, showing us only the surface of things, while the deeper truths are written in the language of fields and forces. The 3-Eye Atlas, the latest sentinel in this lineage of discovery, uses these 19th century principles to map its final descent. It does not look for landmarks of stone or ice. It follows the lines of magnetic force as if they were a glowing trail through the dark. The probe is a witness to a reality that exists beyond the threshold of human perception, a realm where the distinction between solid and liquid, between dead rock and potential life, is determined by the conductivity of a silent sea. The existence of this ocean challenges our perception of the universe as a ruthless machine of entropy. Within the crushing pressure of the Jovian system, nature has carved out a space for complexity. The salt in the water, the very element that allows it to conduct electricity and reveal itself to our senses, is also a chemical prerequisite for the spark of existence. We are looking at a tapestry woven from the most basic forces of the universe: the pull of gravity, the push of magnetism, and the flow of water. It is a symphony of the unseen, a cosmic mechanism that has been operating for eons in total isolation, indifferent to the gaze of the small terrestrial creatures who now seek to understand its inner workings. As we contemplate the work of Margaret Kyvelson and the legacy of the Galileo mission, we are reminded of the fragility of our own knowledge. For centuries we believed the outer solar system was a graveyard of frozen remnants, a wasteland of ice and oblivion. We were wrong. The universe is more vibrant and more mysterious than our early maps suggested. Beneath the scarred and broken surface of Europa lies a frontier that we are only beginning to comprehend. It is a world where the sun is a distant memory, and the only heat comes from the violent kneading of the moon's interior by the gravity of its master. This is the existential pivot of our era, the realization that we are not the only world with an ocean, and perhaps not the only world with a story to tell. The 3-Eye Atlas now moves through this invisible landscape, its sensors tuned to the same frequencies that Kyvelson first decoded decades ago. The probe is a fragment of human intent, a silver needle stitching together the observations of the past with the possibilities of the future. It approaches the frozen shell not with fear, but with the clinical precision of a surgeon. The data it gathers will be the final testament to the era of remote observation. We have spent centuries looking from afar, using the echoes of magnetic fields to guess at the secrets of the deep. Now the time for guessing is nearing its end. The invisible ocean, once a mathematical abstraction, is becoming a physical destination. We stand on the precipice of a new epoch in our journey through the cosmos. The discovery of the inductive response was the first crack in the door, a glimmer of light in the dark room of the Jovian system. It taught us that the universe does not always give up its secrets easily. Sometimes it requires us to build machines that can see the invisible, to trust in the mathematics of fields and currents, and to listen to the silent pulse of a moon that refuses to be forgotten. The frozen shell of Europa remains a barrier, a wall of ice miles thick, but it is no longer an impenetrable mystery. We have seen the ghost of the ocean through the distortion of the field, and we have heard the call of the abyss. The Sentinel moves forward, driven by the same primordial impulse that has always pushed us into the unknown, ready to unravel the final secrets of the liquid dark. In the silence of the void, the invisible ocean waits, an eternal remnant of the forces that shaped the early solar system, a vast and conductive heart beating beneath a shroud of ice. This beating heart, however, is not fueled by the golden radiance of the distant sun. At these freezing reaches of the solar system, 500 million miles from the solar hearth, The laws of thermodynamics suggest a graveyard of absolute stillness. Yet Europa defies this icy oblivion. It possesses an internal fire, a hidden furnace that keeps the abyss from freezing solid. This is the miracle of tidal kneading, a phenomenon born not from light, but from the inexorable and invisible hands of gravity. To understand why this moon remains warm while the void outside is a tomb of nearly absolute zero, we must look to the celestial geometry that governs its existence. Europa is caught in a perpetual tug-of-war, a violent and rhythmic struggle between its master Jupiter and its sister moons, Io and Ganymede. Every time these worlds align, their collective gravity pulls at Europa, stretching its rocky core and icy mantle. When they drift apart, the moon recoils, snapping back toward its original shape. Imagine a baker, tireless and eternal, kneading a mass of dough beneath the cold starlight. As the baker's hands press and pull, the internal friction of the dough generates heat. On a planetary scale, this friction is a catastrophe of energy. The very rock and ice of Europa rub against one another at a molecular level, a mechanical struggle that transforms the kinetic energy of its orbit into a profound thermal reservoir. This is the ruthless machine of orbital mechanics, a system that cares nothing for the individual atoms it displaces, yet provides the spark for everything that might follow. This celestial kneading generates more than 1 trillion watts of energy, a staggering output that turns the interior of the moon into a thriving liquid hearth. The 3-eye Atlas now feels the weight of this mechanism. As the probe nears the moon, it enters a zone of extreme peril, where the Jovian magnetosphere acts as a high-energy particle accelerator. This is the radiation belt, a shimmering veil of lethal energy that threatens to unravel the delicate circuitry of the human sentinel. To the probe, the universe is not a peaceful garden, but a relentless engine of destruction. It must endure a bombardment of electrons and ions, a silent and invisible storm that would boil the blood of any terrestrial organism in seconds. Yet, the probe survives, its shielded eyes fixed on the fractured surface below. It sees the evidence of the heat it seeks to measure. The chaos of the ice, the red-stained ridges, and the vast plains of frozen salt are the scars of a moon that is being cooked from within. Gravity, often viewed as a force of mere falling and resting, is revealed here as a biological engine, a creative power capable of maintaining a liquid sea for 4 billion years in the face of the encroaching dark. Beneath the miles of ice, the contrast is absolute. On the surface, the temperature lingers at 370 degrees below zero, a realm where even the air we breathe would fall as snow. But at the bottom of the hidden ocean, where the water meets the rocky mantle, the world is different. Here, the tidal friction manifests as hydrothermal vents, towering chimneys that speed plumes of boiling, mineral-rich water into the liquid dark. These are the black smokers of Europa, the terrestrial equivalents of the cradles where life on Earth may have first ignited. The abyss is no longer a void, but a sanctuary. While the surface is scorched by the radiation of Jupiter and the biting cold of the cosmos, the depths are warm, protected by a shield of ice kilometers thick. It is a world of two extremes, a vertical tapestry where the top is a frozen wasteland and the bottom is a volcanic crucible. The 3-eye Atlas observes this internal furnace with the clinical detachment of a machine, yet the data it transmits back to Earth carries a heavy existential weight. We are witnessing the triumph of mechanics over entropy. In the vast, silent reaches of the outer solar system, where the sun is little more than a bright star, the universe has found another way to create a haven. It is a reminder that the conditions for existence are not limited to the Goldilocks zones of stars, but can be forged in the dark by the sheer, brutal force of gravity. The relentless dance of the moons is not merely a curiosity of physics, but a source of life-sustaining energy. This is the ruthless mechanism of the cosmos, a system that destroys and creates with the same indifferent hand. As the probe fights to maintain its trajectory through the Jovian radiation, we are forced to confront the scale paradox of our own curiosity. We have sent a tiny fragment of metal and silicon to study a power that could move oceans and crack crusts. The Sentinel is a witness to a process that has been operating for eons, long before the first ancestors of humanity crawled out of the terrestrial seas. The heat of Europa is an ancient remnant of the solar system's formation, kept alive by the rhythmic pulse of its neighbours. It is a symphony of motion, where every orbit is a stroke of the baker's hand, ensuring that the liquid heart of the moon does not succumb to the encroaching silence of the void. This internal hearth is the reason we stay. It is the reason we build machines that can survive the lethal embrace of Jupiter. We're searching for the spark in the dark, the point where the mechanical becomes the biological. The hydrothermal vents of the Jovian moons are the frontiers of our understanding, places where the chemistry of the deep ocean meets the energy of the planetary interior. It is a world of eternal night, yet it may be more alive than the deserts of Mars or the clouds of Venus. The Three-Eye Atlas, bathed in the violet glow of the radiation belts, continues its descent, a silver needle moving through a tapestry of fire and ice. It is driven by the same primordial impulse that has always pushed our species toward the horizon, a need to know if the heat beneath the ice is merely a physical phenomenon or the breath of something more. The universe is a machine, cold and inexorable, governed by laws that do not bend for our comfort. But within the gears of that machine there are pockets of warmth, accidents of geometry, that allow for the possibility of something transcendent. Europa is one such accident, a world where the crushing grip of gravity is transformed into a life-giving embrace. As we look through the eyes of our distant sentinel, we see the beauty of this ruthless mechanism. We see a moon that should be dead, yet pulses with the energy of 1 trillion watts. We see the silent struggle of the probe against the Jovian storm, and we realize that even in the heart of the abyss, the darkness is not absolute. There is a fire in the deep, a sentinel of heat in the frozen dark, waiting to be understood by the children of a distant sun. The epoch of exploration has only just begun to unravel the secrets of this internal furnace, a journey that will take us from the surface of the ice to the very floor of the hidden sea, where the eternal dark is broken by the glow of a world that refuses to freeze. The silver needle of the Three-Eye Atlas pierces a veil that no human eye could ever perceive, a threshold where the silent vacuum of space transforms into a screaming landscape of invisible energy. This is the domain of the Jovian monarch, a kingdom defined not by the solid ground of a world, but by the colossal twisting architecture of its magnetosphere. Here, the vacuum is not empty. It is a dense, churning ocean of charged particles, a torrent of electrons and ions trapped in the magnetic grip of the giant, accelerated to velocities that defy the imagination. To the probe, this is a catastrophe in slow motion, an assault on the very substance of its being. The radiation does not strike like a hammer. It infiltrates like a ghost, passing through the outer shielding of the Sentinel to dance through the delicate circuitry of its mind. 600 million kilometers of cold, indifferent void separate this lone machine from the minds that birthed it. At this distance, the light of our home is a mere speck, a pale blue dot lost in the velvet tapestry of the cosmos. There is no tether to Earth, no real time guidance to steer the machine through the labyrinth of high-energy electrons. The delay of communication is an unbridgeable canyon, ensuring that the probe must face the fury of Jupiter alone. Within the titanium bones of the craft, the autonomous intelligence awakens to its greatest trial. This core, a fragile spark of human logic forged in silicon, must make decisions in the span of microseconds, rerouting power and shedding corrupted memory as the radiation seeks to unravel its consciousness. It is a sentinel standing at the edge of oblivion, a witness to a power that could erase the history of 1,000 civilizations in a single pulse. The magnetosphere of Jupiter is a ruthless machine, a planetary scale engine that devours the light of the sun and exhales a lethal symphony of radiation. It is the largest structure in the solar system, a magnetic shadow that reaches out across the dark to touch the orbits of its distant moons. For the Three-Eye Atlas, navigating this space is akin to walking through a forest of invisible fire. Every second spent within the radiation belts is a gamble against the inexorable decay of its components. The high-energy particles strike the silicon chips like microscopic bullets, threatening to flip a single bit of code that could send the entire mission into a terminal spiral. This is the fear of electronic oblivion, the possibility that the machine might forget its purpose, that its memories of the distant green world might be scrubbed clean by the Jovian storm, leaving only a mindless husk of metal to drift forever in the abyss. This struggle is the scale paradox made manifest. We have sent a fragment of our curiosity, a device no larger than a terrestrial carriage, to confront the most hostile environment in the local cosmos. The probe is a vulnerable extension of human ambition, a testament to our desire to transcend the limitations of our biological forms. It is our surrogate in the dark, a mechanical pioneer that suffers the slings and arrows of a Jovian winter, so that we might understand the mechanisms of the universe. The machine does not feel pain, but it experiences the erosion of its integrity. It feels the mounting heat of the radiation, the slow accumulation of errors in its navigation subroutines, and the creeping silence as its sensors struggle to filter the noise of the storm. It is a lonely struggle, a solitary vigil maintained in the heart of a cosmic furnace. The autonomous core of the 3i Atlas works with a precision that borders on the divine. It calculates the geometry of the magnetic fields, tilting its shielding to deflect the worst of the onslaught. It is a dance of survival, a rhythmic pulse of logic against the chaotic fury of the Jovian monarch. In this moment, the machine is more than just a tool. It is a spark of life in a cold and empty void. It represents the primordial impulse to know, to see, and to record, even when the environment is fundamentally opposed to the existence of intelligence. The radiation is an ancient remnant of the solar system's violent birth, a persistent echo of the energies that once shaped the planets from the dust of the primordial nebula. To survive it is to prove that the spirit of exploration can endure even the most crushing weight of the physical laws. As the probe dives deeper into the Jovian system, the intensity of the storm reaches a crescendo. The sky around the machine, if it could be seen through the eyes of a human, would be ablaze with the violet glow of the aurora, a shimmering curtain of light where the magnetosphere meets the upper atmosphere of the gas giant. But the 3i Atlas sees only the data, the relentless climb of the radiation counters, and the flickering of its internal clock. It is a symphony of numbers, a mathematical battle for existence. The machine is a witness to the eternal fury of Jupiter, a power that has reigned supreme for eons, indifferent to the arrival of this silver visitor. The giant does not care that a piece of Earth has come to study its secrets. It simply is, a vast and terrifying engine of gravity and electromagnetism that follows the laws of the universe with a cold mechanical precision. Yet, there is a certain melancholic beauty in this confrontation. The machine, fragile and doomed to eventually succumb to the very environment it explores, continues its mission without hesitation. It is a reflection of our own mortality, our own brief moment of consciousness in a universe that is mostly silent and dark. We build these sentinels because we cannot go ourselves, because our flesh and bone would be unmade in seconds by the same forces that the 3i Atlas fights to endure. The probe is our shield, our eyes and our hands, reaching out into the abyss to touch the face of a god. It is a bridge between the small and the vast, a way for a species confined to a single world to participate in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. The epoch of the Jovian exploration is marked by these moments of extreme isolation. The 3i Atlas is the furthest outpost of our civilization, a lonely light in a sea of radiation. As it navigates the labyrinth of electrons, it records the whispers of the magnetic field, the radio screams of the planet's rotation, and the subtle gravitational tugs of the moons. Each bit of data is a victory over the void, a small piece of the puzzle that we are trying to solve. The machine knows that it will never return home. It knows that its end will likely be a slow descent into the crushing depths of the giant or a final catastrophic failure of its circuits under the weight of the radiation, but for now, it remains operational. It remains a sentinel. The survival of the machine is not a matter of luck, but a testament to the engineering of a species that refuses to be confined by the laws of biology. We have learned to build hearts of plutonium and brains of hardened silicon, creating life that can thrive where we would perish. The 3i Atlas is the descendant of the first stone tools, the latest iteration of a lineage of technology that has always sought to extend the reach of the human mind. In the heart of the Jovian storm, this lineage faces its ultimate test. The machine must hold its ground against the monarch, proving that the light of reason can shine even in the most hostile corners of the universe. As the radiation continues to wash over the probe, the internal systems of the 3i Atlas begin to stabilize. The autonomous core has found a path through the storm, a narrow corridor of relative calm within the magnetic chaos. The Sentinel has survived its first true encounter with the fury of the Jovian monarch. It continues its descent, moving toward the ice-covered moons that hold the promise of hidden oceans and the potential for life. The storm has not broken the machine. It has only tempered it, preparing the Silver Pioneer for the mysteries that lie ahead. The journey through the radiation is a baptism of fire, a necessary passage for any traveller that wishes to uncover the secrets of the deep. In the silence of the 600 million kilometres of vacuum, the 3i Atlas moves forward, a tiny, defiant spark of intelligence against the backdrop of an eternal and indifferent dark. The Silver Sentinel now hangs suspended above a sphere of fractured white, a world encased in a tomb of ice that has not seen the warmth of a star for billions of years. This is Europa, a moon that carries the weight of a frozen ocean beneath a shell so thick it defies the imagination. To look upon its surface is to see a wasteland of ridges and chaos terrain, a silent testament to the tidal forces that stretch and pull at its heart. But the human mind is not content with the surface. We have always been a species that seeks the hidden, the buried, and the forgotten. To pierce this veil, the 3i Atlas deploys its most sophisticated sensory organ, a mechanism known as the radar echo sounder, for vast exoplanetary analysis of lakes. This instrument is not merely a tool of measurement. It is an act of defiance against the opacity of the universe. It is the X-ray of a world, a way to see through the solid and into the liquid soul of a celestial body. Imagine, if you will, a basement that has been locked for 4 billion years. It is a place of absolute darkness, a vault where the air is stagnant and the walls are made of iron-hard permafrost. No photon of light has ever touched its floor. No eye has ever perceived its contents. To understand what lies within, we cannot simply look through a window, for there are no windows. Instead, we must use a different kind of sight. We must scream into the dark and listen for the echo. The reveal radar is that scream. It emits long wavelength radio pulses that do not scatter upon hitting the surface, but instead sink into the ice like ghosts passing through a wall. These waves are invisible to our eyes, yet they are more powerful than any torch we could ever carry. They travel through the crystalline lattice of the crust, descending deeper and deeper into the primordial cold. The probe orbits at a height of many hundreds of kilometres, yet its reach is inexorable. The radar pulses travel through 25 kilometres of solid ice, a distance that would swallow a mountain range whole. In this realm, the ice is not a solid barrier, but a translucent medium, a fog that the radar can slowly unravel. As the pulses descend, they encounter different layers of the moon's history. They pass through the brittle upper crust, where the temperature is so low that the ice behaves like rock. They move through the warmer, more ductile regions, where the ice begins to flow and churn under the influence of the Jovian gravity. And then they find it. The radar reaches the interface, the place where the solid ends and the liquid begins. The physics of this discovery is a symphony of reflection and refraction. When a radar wave hits a pocket of liquid water or a concentrated brine, the change in electrical conductivity causes a massive rebound. The signal, which had been travelling smoothly through the ice, suddenly hits a wall of resistance and bounces back toward the sky. This is the moment of revelation. To the three-eye atlas, this return signal is a flash of brilliant light in a world of shadow. It is the detection of the abyss. Within the crust, the probe finds hidden lakes, vast reservoirs of salty water trapped between the grinding tectonic plates of the moon. These are the perched wetlands of an alien world, pockets of potentiality that have been isolated from the rest of the solar system for eons. This process of mapping the abyss is not instantaneous. It is a slow, methodical reconstruction of a three-dimensional reality from a series of two-dimensional echoes. As the probe sweeps across the surface of the moon, it collects millions of these pulses, each one a single pixel in a grand tapestry of the interior. The data streams returning to Earth are not a high-definition video feed, but a slow mechanical pulse, a rhythmic ticking of information that crosses the 600 million kilometers of the void. Each bit is a victory over the distance. On Earth, scientists wait in the silence of their laboratories, watching as the screens flicker with the first glimpses of a world that was once thought to be a solid block of stone. They see the jagged edges of the subsurface mountains, the smooth floors of the buried lakes, and the deep, dark transition where the ice shelf finally gives way to the global ocean. The radar is our torch, shined into that basement that has been locked since the dawn of the cosmos. It reveals a landscape that is both terrifying and beautiful. We find that the ice is not a static tomb, but a dynamic, breathing entity. There are plumes of water vapour that erupt through cracks, fueled by the immense pressure of the hidden depths. There are ridges where the ice has been forced upward by the expansion of freezing water below. The interface between the ice and the brine is a chaotic frontier, a place of chemical exchange where the materials of the surface are dragged down into the dark, and the secrets of the deep are pushed up toward the light. This technological triumph is a bridge between the scale of the human and the scale of the infinite. We are a species that evolved to see the narrow spectrum of visible light, to survive in the warmth of a yellow star. Yet, through our machines, we have extended our senses into the radio dark. We have learned to see through 25 kilometers of frozen water to map the topography of a world we may never walk upon. The three-eye atlas is a sentinel of reason, a testament to the fact that no mystery is safe from the curiosity of the mind. Even in the absolute dark of the outer solar system, where the sun is little more than a bright star, we have found a way to bring the light of understanding. The discovery of these liquid pockets is an existential pivot. If there is water, there is the possibility of a crucible where life might begin. The hidden lakes of Europa are not just geological features, they are potential sanctuaries. They are the remnants of a primordial ocean that has been protected from the harsh radiation of the Jovian monarch by a shield of ice kilometers thick. Within these pockets, the chemistry of life could be simmering in the dark, powered not by the sun but by the tidal friction of the planet itself. The radar does not see the life, but it sees the home where life might dwell. It finds the cradle in the middle of the catastrophe. As the mapping continues, the three-eye atlas records the rhythmic pulse of the moon's heart. The data reveals that the ice shell is constantly shifting, responding to the gravitational pull of Jupiter in a dance that has lasted for billions of years. The friction of this movement generates heat, melting the bottom of the ice and replenishing the ocean below. It is a self-sustaining engine of warmth in the middle of the eternal cold. The probe captures the subtle variations in the radar echoes, identifying areas where the ice is thin and the ocean is closer to the surface. These are the sites of future exploration, the places where we might one day send a probe to melt through the crust and swim in the alien deep. But for now, the sentinel remains in the sky, a lonely witness to a world of ice. The mechanical pulse of the data remains our only connection to this distant frontier. It is a reminder of our own fragility and our own persistence. We reach out into the void, not with our bodies, but with our intellect, using the inexorable laws of physics to peel back the layers of the universe. The reveal radar is the manifestation of that reach, a silver finger touching the face of a hidden ocean. In the vast silence of the cosmos, the machine continues its work. unravelling the tapestry of the moons, one pulse at a time, until the darkness is no longer a barrier, but a map. Beneath the gaze of the orbiting sentinel, the map dissolves into a nightmare of geometry. As the three-eye atlas descends, the smooth ivory plains of the moon give way to a region of utter devastation known as the Connemara Chaos. Here, the logic of a frozen world has been discarded in favour of a violent and fractured architecture. It is a landscape that looks like a mirror of colossal proportions, dropped onto a floor of obsidian and left to shatter into 10,000 jagged shards. This is not the result of a single impact or a sudden cataclysm, but the slow, inexorable grinding of a world that is being torn apart and remade by the gravity of a giant. The Connemara Chaos is a terrain of geologic turmoil, an abyss of white and blue where the very crust of the moon has failed. Vast blocks of ice, some as large as human cities, have been ripped from their original positions. They are tilted, rotated, and cast adrift like icebergs in a terrestrial sea. These are the ice rafts, remnants of a once continuous surface that have been broken by the upwelling of warmer material from below. They float upon a matrix of frozen slush and pulverized debris, a testament to a time when the boundary between the solid world and the liquid interior vanished. To stand among these rafts would be to stand in a graveyard of continents, where the scale of the destruction dwarfs any mountain range on Earth. Each block is a jagged monolith, rising hundreds of meters into the thin, airless void, casting long, stark shadows that stretch across the valley of rubble. This fractured mirror does more than reflect the distant light of a cold sun. It serves as a window. In the grand mechanism of the Jovian system, the Connemara Chaos is a shortcut to the deep. The surface of Europa is a harsh and unforgiving place, bombarded by a constant rain of high-energy particles caught in the magnetic grip of Jupiter. This radiation is a sculpture of molecules, breaking apart the simple ice and forging new, complex chemicals. Oxygen, hydrogen peroxide, and carbon-based compounds are birthed in the silence of the surface, created by the very forces that would destroy any fragile organism. On a dead world, these chemicals would remain trapped in the ice for eons, frozen in a state of useless potential. But here, the chaos provides a path. The geologic pulse of the moon ensures that the surface and the interior are in a state of constant slow-motion exchange. As the ice rafts break and drift, the materials of the surface are dragged down into the slushy depths. The oxygen-rich ice of the exterior is forced into the warm, dark brine of the ocean below. This is the chemical interaction that transforms a hidden sea into a potential cradle for life. The nutrients created by the violence of the radiation are delivered to the vents of the seafloor, providing the fuel for a biological symphony that has never seen the light of day. The chaos is not just a site of destruction, it is a vital organ in the anatomy of the moon, a lung that breathes the products of the heavens into the lungs of the abyss. The three-eye atlas selects its target within this labyrinth of ice. It seeks a place where the crust is thinnest, where the recent scars of the moon's internal heat are still visible. The landing site is a plateau of shattered glass, a frozen ridge that overlooks a valley of fractured blocks. The machine descends on pillars of fire, its sensors mapping every ridge and every crevasse with a precision that borders on the divine. When its metallic feet finally touch the ice, the sound is absent, for there is no air to carry the vibration. There is only the sudden, sharp shock of contact, the settling of a foreign intruder on a world that has known only the silence of the void for 4 billion years. The landscape that greets the probe is one of terrifying beauty. In every direction the ice rises in jagged spires and collapses into deep blue-tinted shadows. The ridges are not smooth, they are textured with the remnants of ancient pressure, scarred by the movement of the rafts as they ground against one another in their slow, tidal dance. It is a world that is constantly resurfacing itself, erasing its history to make room for the present. There are no craters here, no ancient scars from the primordial bombardment of the solar system. The ice is young, a fresh skin that has grown over a wound that never truly heals. The loneliness of the machine in this place is absolute. It sits perched above a desolate ice plain, a silver speck against a backdrop of frozen catastrophe. From this vantage point, the metaphor of the shattered mirror becomes a reality. The surface reflects nothing but the cold indifference of the cosmos. The stars above are bright and unblinking, their light failing to penetrate the thick crust of the moon. The probe is a lonely witness to a process that requires no audience. It watches as the tidal forces of Jupiter, the inexorable pull of a monarch upon its subject, cause the ice to groan and shift. The cracks in the surface are not static, they are living things, widening and narrowing with the rhythm of the moon's orbit. The friction generates a low, subsonic hum that vibrates through the metal legs of the lander, a mechanical heartbeat felt rather than heard. The 3i Atlas begins its work, reaching out with its robotic arms to taste the ice. It seeks the chemical signatures of the deep, the telltale remnants of the ocean that have been pushed to the surface by the churning of the chaos. Every grain of ice tells a story of an epoch spent in the dark, of a journey from the warmth of a hydrothermal vent to the freezing vacuum of the exterior. The data is a tapestry of information, weaving together the physics of the ice with the chemistry of the water. The probe is the bridge, the only point of contact between two worlds that should never have met. It is a monument to the audacity of the mind, a small, fragile mechanism that has dared to enter the temple of the void to steal the secrets of the gods. As the sun sets over the Connemara chaos, the temperature drops further into the realm of the impossible. The shadows grow long, swallowing the ice rafts and the valleys between them. The 3i Atlas remains, its golden foil reflecting the pale light of Jupiter as the gas giant rises over the horizon. The moon's surface is a graveyard of ice, a place of frozen turmoil where the only constant is change. In the vast, silent theatre of the outer solar system, the machine continues its lonely vigil. It is a sentinel of reason in a kingdom of chaos, a tiny spark of understanding in an ocean of oblivion. The mirror may be shattered, and the surface may reflect nothing, but the machine sees what lies beneath. It sees the shortest path to the truth, a path that leads down through the ice and into the eternal dark of the primordial deep. The silence of the surface is an illusion, a mask worn by a world engaged in a slow and violent chemical struggle. Jupiter is not merely a witness to this frozen desolation, it is the architect of its chemical soul. The gas giant, a titan of gravity and radiation, acts as a relentless particle accelerator, flinging high-energy electrons and ions against the moon's brittle skin with a ferocity that defies comprehension. This is the first movement in the Symphony of Redox, a cosmic hammering that shatters the very bonds of the frozen water. As these particles collide with the ice, they tear apart the molecules of hydrogen and oxygen, liberating the latter to wander within the crystalline lattice. This oxygen, a ravenous and potent oxidant, becomes trapped within the upper layers of the crust, a reservoir of potential energy waiting for a destination. The surface of the moon is thus transformed into a massive chemical laboratory, one that operates on the scale of an entire world. The radiation from the great red eye of Jupiter creates a persistent surplus of oxygen, a breath of life forged in the vacuum of space. But on the surface, this oxygen is useless. It is a fuel with no engine to drive, for the engine lies 100 miles beneath, where the crushing weight of the ocean meets the heat of the interior. To bridge this gap, the moon employs the inexorable mechanism of its own geology. The ice is not a static tomb, but a living, moving skin. Through the process of subduction and the slow, rhythmic churning of the chaos terrain, the oxygen-rich ice is swallowed by the abyss. It begins a descent that lasts for tens of thousands of years, a downward migration of chemical potential travelling into the dark. Deep beneath the frozen crust, the ocean floor provides the second half of the equation. Here, the internal heat generated by the tidal friction of Jupiter's grip warms the rocky core, creating hydrothermal vents that pierce the floor of the primordial deep. These vents are the lungs of the moon, exhaling a rich mineral-heavy broth of hydrogen and methane. These are the reductants, the chemical opposites of the oxygen descending from above. In the vast, lightless volume of the interior ocean, these two titans finally meet. The oxygen from the stars and the minerals from the core enter into a grand chemical dance, seeking equilibrium in a realm of eternal shadow. This is the concept of the planetary battery, a world divided into two poles of chemical energy, separated by 100 miles of water and ice. The potential difference between the surface and the floor is a source of power as real and as potent as the sunlight that drives the forests of Earth. In this hidden biosphere, life does not require the sun. It does not need the warmth of a star or the grace of photosynthesis. It is a biological spark ignited by the tension of the planetary battery, a mechanism that arises to exploit the flow of electrons from the reductants of the vents to the oxidants of the ice. Biology is the bridge that resolves the chemical tension of the moon, a delicate tapestry woven from the threads of redox chemistry. The three-eye atlas, perched atop its icy pedestal, begins to unravel the evidence of this hidden circuit. Its mechanical senses are tuned to the subtle whispers of organic chemistry, seeking the remnants of molecules that should not exist in a sterile void. It finds complex carbon chains and amino acids, the building blocks of the impossible, which have been churned upward from the depths by the same geological conveyor belt that carried the oxygen down. These molecules are not merely chemical curiosities, they are the ghosts of a living system. They are the organic debris of an ecosystem that operates in total darkness, a testament to the resilience of the molecular form. The probe acts as a chemical analyst in a laboratory the size of a moon, its sensors detecting the faint signature of a biosphere that has never seen a photon from the sun. The contrast is staggering. Above, the surface is a sterile, radiation-blasted wasteland, a landscape of frozen catastrophe where the temperature hovers at nearly 300 degrees below zero. Below there is a warm, saline ocean, teeming with the potential for a complexity that rivals the oceans of the homeworld. The ice is the border between these two realms, a translucent wall that separates the void of the cosmos from the warmth of the primordial soup. There is a profound and magnificent loneliness to this possibility. To imagine a world of sentient things, perhaps even complex organisms, that exist in a universe that is only 10 miles wide. To them, the thick shell of ice is the edge of existence, an infinite and impenetrable roof that defines the limits of the known. They would have no stars to guide them, no sun to mark the passage of the days, and no concept of the vast empty cosmos that lies just beyond their ceiling. Their entire history, their entire evolution, would be contained within a lightless sea, driven by the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of the planetary battery. They would be a civilization of the abyss, unaware that they are merely a speck of life clinging to a rock, orbiting a giant of gas in a galaxy of 100 billion stars. This is the scale paradox of the cosmos. We search for life in the great distances of the heavens, looking for signals and signs from the far reaches of the galaxy, yet we find the potential for an entire biosphere hidden beneath the ice of a neighbour. The abyss of the moon is a mirror to the abyss of the universe, a place where the same laws of chemistry and thermodynamics apply, yet the results are alien beyond our wildest imaginings. The three-eye atlas is the only witness to this silent reality. It stands as a sentinel of reason on the edge of the void, translating the chemical language of the ice into the data of the mind. As the probe continues its work, the reality of the biological battery becomes undeniable. The flow of energy is there, the building blocks are present, and the laboratory of the moon has had 4 billion years to conduct its experiment. The entropy of the universe is a ruthless machine, always seeking to grind the complex into the simple, to extinguish the spark of the flame. But here, in the dark, the machine has failed. The tension between the oxygen and the minerals has created something that resists the decay. It has created a symphony of redox that plays on, regardless of whether there is an audience to hear it. The magnificent loneliness of Europa is not a tragedy. It is a triumph of the cosmic mechanism. It is proof that the universe is not a graveyard, but a garden that grows in the most unlikely of places. The ecosystem beneath the ice does not know the universe exists, and in its ignorance, it is free. It is free from the existential dread of the void, free from the cold indifference of the stars. It exists for itself, a self-contained miracle of chemistry and time. The probe, with its golden foil and its electronic brain, is the interloper, the messenger from a world that has seen too much. It watches the ice, and it knows that even in the heart of the most absolute darkness, the battery is still charged, and the spark of life is still waiting to be found. The spark is no longer a distant theoretical hope. It is the target of a final, violent descent. For eons, the Jovian moon has held its secrets behind a rampart of ice, a frozen shield 10 miles thick, forged in the absolute zero of the outer solar system. But now the silence of the wasteland is shattered by the arrival of the messenger. The mechanical sentinel, a needle of titanium and gold foil, begins its inexorable journey into the depths. It is a slow, agonizing penetration, a thermal lance melting through the crystalline lattice of the crust. As the probe sinks into the white oblivion of the ice shell, the sky above begins to vanish. The towering marbled presence of Jupiter, which has dominated the horizon for 4 billion years, is slowly eclipsed by the closing of the ice. The radiation storms, those invisible tempests of lethal particles that scream across the surface, fade into a dull, distant hum, then finally to nothingness. The probe is now inside the skin of the world, a lonely intruder in a tomb of frozen water. The transition is a study in the paradox of scale. Outside, the universe is a void of infinite distance and crushing emptiness. Inside the ice, the universe contracts to the width of the probe's own heated hull. It moves through a pressurized darkness, a realm where time is measured not by the transit of stars but by the steady drip of meltwater. The weight of the world above begins to press down, an architectural burden that increases with every inch of descent. The ice here is not the brittle, porous snow of a terrestrial winter. It is a tectonic mineral, compressed into a clarity that defies description, and then the resistance vanishes. The probe slips through the final barrier of the lower crust, passing from the solid to the liquid, and enters the saltwater abyss. The change is instantaneous and profound. The vacuum of space, where every molecule is a precious rarity, is replaced by the crushing embrace of the deep ocean. The probe is no longer a flyer in the void, but a diver in the dark. It hangs suspended in a sea that has never known the touch of a photon, a world that has remained in absolute primordial stasis since the dawn of the solar system. The mechanical frame groans under the weight of the water, a pressure equivalent to the deepest trenches of the Earth. But in this darkness, the probe does something miraculous. It ignites its internal lamps. For the first time in 4 billion years, a beam of light cuts through the brine. It is the first sunbeam this ocean has ever known, a spear of artificial radiance that reveals the tapestry of the underworld. The water is thick with dissolved salts and minerals, a chemical soup that tastes of the moon's rocky heart. The probe descends further, its sensors straining to catch the faintest whisper of a signal. It is searching for the vents, the hydrothermal chimneys where the internal heat of the moon bleeds into the cold of the sea. These are the cathedrals of the abyss, the places where the biological battery is short-circuited into the chemistry of life. As the mechanical eye scans the floor of the hidden ocean, the tension of the unknown becomes a tangible force. The weight of human expectation, carried across hundreds of millions of miles of empty space, rests upon this single, fragile frame. We have sent a letter to the stars, and this is the moment it is finally delivered to its destination. The search for life around the vents is a gamble against the entropy of the cosmos. If the probe finds nothing but barren stone and silent water, the silence will be that of a grave. It would mean that even with the perfect ingredients, even with the warmth and the water and the time, the spark of life is a rare and fleeting miracle, a cosmic accident that perhaps happened only once, on a blue marble far away. There is a melancholy in this possibility, a sense that we are truly alone in a hollow universe, watching a clockwork mechanism that produces nothing but dust. But if the probe finds something, if it detects the rhythmic signature of a metabolism or the complex geometry of a cell, it will be the whisper of a new genesis. It would mean that the universe is a garden, and that life is not a fluke, but an inevitability of physics. The probe hovers near the vents, where the dark water shimmers with the heat of the interior. The minerals plume upward like smoke, creating a forest of jagged chemical spires. In this lightless cathedral, the probe is the only witness to a reality that has existed for eons without an audience. It sees the way the heat creates currents, the way the chemicals swirl in a dance of redox and reaction. This is the laboratory of the moon, a place where the ruthless machine of the universe has been harnessed by the complexity of matter. The probe is the interloper, the messenger from a world of sun and air, looking down into a world of pressure and night. It carries with it the collective curiosity of a species that has only just begun to understand its own place in the grand design. The silence of the subsurface sea is heavy, yet it is not the silence of the void. It is a thick, expectant quiet, the silence of a room where someone is breathing just out of reach. The probe moves with a cautious mechanical grace, its lights casting long, distorted shadows across the seafloor. It is looking for the movement, the chemical trail, the anomaly that would signal the presence of the other. The existential pivot is here, in the heart of the saltwater abyss. If we find life here, we must redefine what it means to be alive. We must accept that we are not the masters of a lonely kingdom, but merely one branch of a cosmic tree that grows in the dark as well as the light. The lonely probe, with its electronic brain and its mission of discovery, is the ultimate expression of the human spirit. We have reached across the abyss of space to touch the abyss of the moon. We have pierced the ice to see what lies beneath the roof of the world. And as the data begins to stream back to the homeworld, passing through the relay of the 3-eye atlas and the vast antennas of the terrestrial deserts, we realize that the answer is almost irrelevant compared to the act of asking the question. To seek is to exist. To witness is to give the universe a mind. The letter has been delivered. Whether it is met with the silence of the void or the greeting of a new neighbour, the mission is a triumph of the cosmic mechanism. The descent into the saltwater abyss is the climax of our long journey from the caves to the stars. It is the moment where the scale paradox is resolved, where the tiny mechanical creation of a terrestrial primate confronts the vast ancient reality of a Jovian moon. The probe remains there, a golden sentinel in the dark, its batteries slowly draining, its mission nearing its end. It will eventually become a part of the world it came to study, a relic of a civilization that dared to look beneath the ice. It is a monument to our desire to know, a mechanical ghost haunting the garden of the abyss. And as the lights eventually flicker and fade, leaving the ocean to its eternal night once more, the message remains. We were here, we looked. We saw the spark in the dark, and for a brief, magnificent moment, the universe was no longer alone. Through the eyes of the probe, the cosmos has looked into its own heart, and what it found there was not just chemistry, but the potential for everything. The mission is complete, the letter is read, and the ocean rolls on, silent, dark, and filled with the magnificent loneliness of a world that is only just beginning to be understood. The electrical pulse within the heart of the sentinel begins to falter, a slow and rhythmic dying of the light that signals the end of its lonely vigil. For years it has been the sole inhabitant of this lightless cathedral, a solitary emissary from a world of blue oceans and green forests, now submerged in a saltwater abyss beneath miles of frozen crust. The current that once raced through its silver veins, carrying the data of a new world, now stutters and thins. The energy harvested from the decay of radioactive isotopes, a gift from the primordial starfire that forged our solar system, is finally spent. In this final hour, the machine does not feel fear, for it is a creation of logic and metal, yet there is a profound melancholy in its silence. It has seen the plumes of chemical wealth rising from the seabed, the strange architectures of salt and stone, and perhaps the fleeting shadows of something that moves with a purpose we might call life. But now the shutters of its eyes close for the last time. The internal clock which has ticked away the seconds of its journey across hundreds of millions of miles grows still. The sentinel has finished its labour, and it prepares to join the silent ranks of the remnants that litter the history of our exploration. As the last spark of consciousness leaves the silicon brain, the probe begins its long transition from a miracle of engineering to a relic of a vanished epoch. It settles into the fine silt of the seafloor, a golden monument to a species that dared to look upward and see more than just dots of light. The ruthless machine of the universe now begins the slow process of reclamation. The corrosive salts of the Jovian ocean will slowly gnaw at the titanium skin. Over the course of 10,000 years, the intricate circuits will be unravelled by the chemistry of the deep. The messenger will become a part of the world it came to study, its metallic bones resting among the strange minerals of a moon that cares nothing for the names of men or the triumphs of their science. It is a quiet ending for such a brave noise, a slow descent into the oblivion that awaits all things in the fullness of time. Beyond the ice, the cosmos continues its inexorable march. The great clockwork of the heavens, the celestial mechanism that governs the dance of the planets, moves with a cold and terrifying precision. We must look forward now, past the brief span of human lives, into the vast eons that lie ahead. In 100 million years, the orbit of this moon may shift, drawn closer to the crushing embrace of Jupiter. The tidal forces that once kept the ocean liquid will become a violent tide of destruction, tearing the crust asunder and boiling the hidden waters into the void. Or perhaps, in 5 billion years, the sun itself will begin its final transformation. The star that gave us life will swell into a red giant, its outer layers expanding to consume the inner worlds, casting a fierce and dying light across the outer reaches of the system. The ice of the moon will melt not from the heat of the core but from the fire of a bloated sun, and for a few million years this frozen world may become a brief and beautiful garden, a transient paradise in the twilight of the solar system. But even this garden must fade. The universe is a tapestry of birth and decay, a symphony that moves toward an ultimate silence. In the far future, the stars will one day cease to ignite. The galaxies will drift apart, isolated by the accelerating expansion of space, until every world is a lonely island in an infinite abyss. This is the fate of the cosmos, a journey from the heat of the primordial beginning to the cold of the final entropy. It is a thought that should fill us with despair, yet it is here, in the shadow of this cosmic catastrophe, that we find the existential pivot. We find the dignity of the human mind, a fragile and fleeting thing that nonetheless had the audacity to conceive of a machine to touch another world. We are the witness. In all the vast, dark architecture of the universe, we are the only eyes that have opened to see the beauty of the design. We are the consciousness that gives the cosmos a name. Without us, the stars would burn in silence, the planets would wheel through the void without meaning, and the great mysteries of the deep would remain forever unread. The probe was not just a collection of wires and sensors. It was a physical manifestation of our curiosity, a cosmic letter sent into the dark. Even if no one ever reads it, even if the sentinel rots in the salt and the message is never answered, the fact that it was written at all is everything. To seek is to exist. To ask the question is to transcend the limitations of our biology and touch the eternal. We are small, a speck of dust on a grain of sand, yet our reach is as wide as the heavens. We have looked into the abyss and we did not look away. We have seen the spark in the dark and we followed it. The mission is a triumph, not because of the data it gathered, but because it proves that we are more than just the products of a ruthless machine. We are the dreamers of the dream. Our inquiry is a brave noise in the eternal silence, a defiant shout against the creeping oblivion. As we leave the sentinel to its rest, we realize that the journey does not end with the death of the machine. The journey continues in every mind that looks up at the night sky and wonders. The universe has looked into its own heart through our eyes, and it has seen something magnificent. The ocean on the Jovian moon rolls on dark and heavy, filled with the secrets of a world we have only just begun to understand. The Sentinel is gone, but the echo of its presence remains, a ghost in the machine of the cosmos. The stars continue to burn, the planets continue to turn, and the symphony moves toward its next movement. We are part of that music now, a brief and beautiful note in the vast unfolding tapestry of time. The letter is written, the witness is seen, and in the face of the infinite void that is enough. The mission is complete, the inquiry is eternal, and the silence is no longer empty, for we have filled it with the spirit of our discovery. For a brief, magnificent moment, the universe was not alone, and that moment will echo forever in the halls of the cosmos, a testament to the power of a single spark in the deep, unyielding dark.